Here's your 2-minute second warning. 1, Mississippi. 2, Mississippi. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Nikki, I changed it to 2 seconds, so we'll just, nope. Okay. Good, perfect. All right, thank you all for coming to the regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees of Livingston Range School Division. I'd like to welcome you all here and call us to order at 9:04. A little bit late this morning, we had some technical difficulties. And I'll have Trustee Hodges do our land acknowledgement, please.
Oki, welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of Mississippi, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, the Blackfoot people within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Thank you so much, Trustee Hodges. And I'll now invite you all to stand for O Canada. Thank you. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. The recommendation is that the April 26, 2022 consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Long, thank you. Is there anything that anyone wanted to pull from the consent agenda? Trustee Toon?
Apologies. I'd like to pull the Associate Superintendent's monthly report. Mr. Perry's, please.
Okay, we will pull that and move it as discussion item F3. Thank you. Is there any other items that any trustees would like pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the board approve the April 26, 2022 consent agenda, be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Item C is emergent changes to the agenda. The recommendation that the April 26, 2022 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Yagos. Perfect. And is there any changes that need to be made to the agenda at this time? Okay, sounds good. All in favor? Perfect. Okay, we'll move on to D. This is declaration of conflict of interest. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees declares if they have any conflict of interest related to agenda items from the April 26, 2022 board meeting, and if so, they should declare it at this time. Seeing none? Okay. All right, we will move on to our action items. Action item E1, the Audit Committee, in response to Trustee Hodges' notice of motion on March 22nd, 2022 regarding the Audit Committee and tipping and hotel costs. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees direct the Audit Committee to recommend a limit on tipping and consider implementing limits on hotels in order to be fiscally responsible. Any recommendations by the Audit Committee would be presented to the Board at a future board meeting, along with a recommendation to direct the Policy Committee to make the appropriate changes to Board Policy 8. That's being made by Trustee Hodges, and I will let her speak to it at this time.
Just under the recommendation, the audit committee has already had a discussion around the tipping limit, and we were then going to direct policy to implement it. So we've already had a discussion around it at the audit committee, and it was being brought forth to direct policy then to implement it.
Thank you.
So and we wanted policy then to just take a look at some policies that were potentially already out there and then bring a recommendation back to the board. Any questions?
Thanks, Trustee Hodges. Is there any questions at this time around this? Trustee Stankiewicz?
As part of the policy committee, I was looking for parameters recommended by the audit committee as to the amounts and specifics that we were looking for to make the changes in policy.
Thanks, Trustee Stankiewicz. So this motion is asking the audit committee to go and take a look at it, and once they have that those specifics in mind, they'll need to come to the board for approval. And then there would be a motion directing policy. So do you have anything to add to that, Trustee Hodges?
Sorry, the audit committee, I thought we already had discussed it, so then we were gonna share with policy what the discussion was. I didn't know that we had to approve the discussion at audit and then direct policy. I thought we could just work together, as I'm also on the audit committee, and then the recommendation can come forward to the board through policy.
Okay.
So I guess I'm seeking clarity on that, because I did the notice of motion because we had the discussion at audit committee on a tipping amount. And so then just having the conversation with policy around that, and then looking at policies that were out there, then it would come back to the board that way. So it's seeking clarity on that, I guess.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Yagos, do you mind if I just read this out loud one more time so we can, well, why don't you go ahead, Trustee Yagos, and then I'll read it again.
Okay, I guess my question was then, as Trustee Hodges is part of the policy committee also, I was just wondering if there was going to be a timeline that we wanted to put on this, or because we're going to have to then look at having a meeting, calling a meeting and that. So was there anything like, as I said, is there any timeline?
Okay, thank you, Trustee Yagos. Currently in the motion, the recommendation, there is no timeline, so there could be amendment to that. As the motion currently reads, it's that the Board of Trustees direct the Audit Committee to recommend a limit on tipping and consider implementing limits on hotels in order to be fiscally responsible. Any recommendation by the Audit Committee would be presented to the board at a future board meeting, along with a recommendation to direct the policy to make the appropriate changes to Board Policy 8. So as the recommendation currently reads, this is the board directing Audit Committee to come up with a recommended limit on tipping and consider implementing limits for hotels. So that would be up to the Audit Committee. Once the Audit Committee had taken care of that, they would need to bring it back for board approval. So if that wording is incorrect, then we could make, if there's someone who would like to make an amendment at this time?
If the board so wishes it to be that way, that's just not exactly the recommendation I had put forth, so I was just confused when it was on there, so not directly that way, no. But we can definitely, the audit committee can then meet, and then if the board wishes this to be a cleaner way of doing it, then we definitely can do it this way. I have no problem with it. Thank you.
Trustee Long?
Make an amendment to that we put a time limit on it as of October 2022. And the reason I'm suggesting that is before we start our PD and ASBA sessions, seminars, professional development next fall, that we have something in place. Is that possible?
Thank you, Trustee Long. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees direct the Audit Committee to recommend a limit on tipping and consider implementing limits on hotels in order to be fiscally responsible. Any recommendation by the Audit Committee would be presented to the board at a future board meeting along with a recommendation to direct policy to make the appropriate changes to Board Policy 8 before October 1st, 2023. It's okay, no, shh. Trustee Toon, please go ahead. Just raise your hand if you want to be in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Trustee Hodges for bringing this forward. I think we need clarity around this to help with the new board, and we always want to be fiscally responsible. That's something we all strive for. I appreciate Trustee Long bringing this forward with an end date. I would suggest maybe it being September, because part of our organizational meeting is approving remuneration for the upcoming year. So it might, I feel it would be appropriate to have it by then, and that's, I think, a realistic timeline, and that would, I think, help with the intent that Trustee Long had of getting this in place for our upcoming year.
Thank you. So that would be before the September 2023 organizational meeting. Would you consider that a friendly amendment to your amendment, Trustee Long? Yes. Okay, thank you. So just for clarity, we're only discussing the amendment at this time. Trustee Gimber?
There we go. I believe that should read September 1st, 2022 is what you guys are thinking.
Okay, that's correct. Yes. We wanted to have lots of time. And sorry, also, because this doesn't change the intent, Trustee Hodges, would you consider the amendment a friendly amendment? Yes. Okay, so we don't need to vote on that. Trustee Stankiewicz?
Our organizational meeting will be the September 12th, so I'm just wondering if we can make sure that's...
So the organizational meeting is actually September 26th. September 12th is our meeting of the whole. Yeah. So yeah, that will be in there before that. So perfect. Okay. Trustee Yagos?
I was going to ask the audit committee if they have already gone into and found information from other groups on limits and that, so that when this was brought forward, we could, because it was indicated that by Trustee Hodge that they already had the meeting and talked about this.
So the audit committee needs to bring the recommendation forward to the board in order to have it approved and give policy enough time to change the policy before September 1st. So although those numbers haven't happened yet, it will probably be coming up to the May or the June meeting for approval, and the numbers would be in there. Okay. Any other questions around this piece? Okay, I'm seeing none. Trustee Hodges, did you want to close on this?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thanks, Trustee Hodges. Again, we appreciate you bringing this forward. It's important to have these discussions. So the recommendation made by Trustee Hodges is that the Board of Trustees direct the Audit Committee to recommend a limit on tipping and consider implementing limits on hotels in order to be fiscally responsible. Any recommendation by the Audit Committee would be presented to the Board at a future Board meeting, along with a recommendation to direct the Policy Committee to make the appropriate changes to Board Policy 8 before the September 1st, 2022, before September 21st, 2022. Okay? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have E2, which is Group PD and Communications, and this was in response to Trustee Gimber's notice of motion on March 22nd, 2022 regarding Group PD and Communications for the April 26, 2022 board meeting. We don't have a full recommendation on this. Trustee Gimber, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you. I had suggested the notice of motion prior to new developments regarding our PD over the past several weeks. And therefore, at this time, I don't have any recommendations.
Perfect, thank you so much. So we will remove this, and is it okay to remove it from the agenda even though we didn't do it when the agenda was approved? Or is there a different process that we need to go to that anyone knows of yet?
I'd prefer if it remained on there as is, please.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Trustee Yagos.
I say she could rescind the motion, so.
Yeah, there was no motion attached with it, so, but it was a notice of motion. A notice of motion, but then no motion came forward. So this is more of a information piece, letting us know that, okay, I will look more into that later. So at this time, we're just going to move on from E2. There is no recommendation, so that does not need a vote. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to E3. This is coming from Trustee Stankiewicz. The Professional Learning Committee has been asked to plan a day for the board and administration team building. By using our own facilities and facilitators, a fiscally responsible option of achieving this professional development can be realized. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve June 20th, 2022 as a board and admin team development day at the Crow's Nest Pass facility. Trustee Stankiewicz, would you like to speak to this? Or Trustee Yagos?
Yep. This is an option, and it's, we don't have to do this if it doesn't work out in our schedule, but we need approval if we are able to do it.
Trustee Yagos?
We had a professional learning committee meeting yesterday, and we decided that this day would be better to be put in the fall, just because of all of the other things that are starting to happen in May and June, and it would be just too many days that, so we are going to keep on looking at a professional development day with this, and then bring up a date in the fall for this to happen. And this is also depending upon, well, not depending upon, but some of the things we were going to do were also planned with what Richard Feller was going to do. So we made the decision that we would then move this on to the fall. I guess we still would need approval for having this as a day on in the fall, and we'll bring the date back. Yeah.
Okay, so Trustee Yagos is wanting to make an amendment. Go ahead, Trustee Stankiewicz. Sorry. Did you want to make an amendment? Or did you want to wait?
Well, Trustees Stankiewicz had something to say, so I'll let her say
Okay.
it, and then.
So there's no amendment. Okay, go ahead, Trustee Stankiewicz.
Okay. Okay, oh, there we go. I would like to keep this as is. The proposed date in the future that is optional may not be realized, and its plans are not yet set. So if it is possible to achieve this day, I'd like to keep this motion as is. And if we have another day as an alternative, we can cancel this and not do it. But if we don't approve it, we won't get the option to achieve this professional development day.
Thank you, Trustee Stankiewicz. Trustee Long?
What is that date, June 20th, like for administration?
This date was chosen by the Professional Learning Committee with administration as a day that would be available for all. Okay, any other questions about this day? Trustee Hodges?
Sorry. I just have a question around, so I realize that it's super important for us to have professional learning with administration. I just wonder sometimes, like in the past, we've had a board a retreat and with administration and planning possibly budget or strategic plan. I just wondered if this is something that's going to be different than that, or if that's something that's going to be coming into the future for the board to still do. Is this something on top of that, something different? I just would like some clarity around the two different ones.
Trustee Yagos?
Thank you. It was decided, I thought, at the meeting yesterday that we were not going to be pursuing a trustee development day to the end of June because of the total amount of things that not only central office, but we as a board, if you start to look at June, we have a lot of things that are going on, and it just makes it very difficult for people, and including the fact that if we have I'm sorry, I can't remember what was called in terms of the day, but that would make things difficult in that. I feel that if we leave it on the 20th and say that this is going to be a day that people are going to be planning for that, and then we're going to have to make some plans in that. I would like to look at planning a day in the fall, find the date and do it, and also bring that and talk to the people involved so that we could have that day. We have just got too much going on right now, and it is extremely busy, not only for the trustees, but also for central office.
Thank you, Trustee Yagos. So just for clarity, I've got you, Trustee Stankiewicz. So just for clarity, we had discussed having a day on the land with the elders. That was something that the elders had discussed with our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, Richard Feller, and we are hoping to do that on June 7th, when we will be up in Red Deer for our ASBA. So that date needs to be moved, and it may potentially, since we knew June 20th was a day that had been approved, may be moved to June 20th, if that can happen. If that can't happen and the elders can't make that day work, then I believe that Trustee Stankiewicz and the Professional Learning Committee were going to still get approval for this day in hopes that if the day on the land doesn't happen, that then it could still be a professional learning. That's just a little history behind that. So I'll go ahead and go to Trustee Stankiewicz, and then Trustee Toon, did you have your hand up as well? No, okay, just Trustee Stankiewicz first.
You spoke to my point.
Sorry, giving some clarity there. Okay, so Trustee Hodges?
So I'd asked a question earlier if there was a difference between a board retreat that we potentially have or this board development day, what the difference was, and I just would like that question answered.
Okay, we'll go to Trustee Stankiewicz and then Trustee Yagos.
Yes, we are looking into a board retreat in the fall in conjunction with admin. There are some dates possible that we've spoken about, and it's something that we're looking into, Trustee Hodges, so rest assured.
Thank you, Trustee Stankiewicz. Trustee Yagos?
I was basically going to say the same. Yesterday at our professional learning committee, which we haven't sent the notes out yet because we just had it yesterday. We did talk about with the administration, with Superintendent Sequin, about having it's the same or approximate that we have to bring this back to the board along with the admin one, having in conjunction with that. But nothing has been planned yet or discussed. So this is in the works. We are looking at this. We haven't brought anything back to the board yet on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Toon?
My question was answered. I would ask the chair to call the question.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read. Okay, I'm going to read the recommendation. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the June 20th, 2022 as a board and admin team development day at the Crow's Nest Pass facility. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's passed. Okay, perfect. We're going to move on to E5. I beg your pardon? E4. Just kidding. E4. We'll do it in order. Okay. Land-based camp. As truth and reconciliation is a board priority, I recommend that the members of the Wisdom and Guidance Council attend this event on the board's behalf. As Trustee Poitras is unavailable, I would like to recommend Trustee Long attend in her place along with Trustee Gimber. This is being made by Trustee Stankiewicz. And the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve a delegation to attend the land-based camp on May 2nd at Castle Resort, that Trustee Long and Trustee Gimber be the representatives. I'll have Trustee Stankiewicz speak to this if she'd like.
Yeah, it's being funny again, because there's ghosts in my mic. Yeah, the board will, Jiminy. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm making this recommendation on behalf of the board. I believe it's important to have a delegation represent us at this important event, and I didn't ask the trustees if they wanted to go, so hopefully that's okay.
Thank you. We'll go to Trustee Long.
I think it's important that we go. I agree with your recommendation. I would point out to all the other trustees that on May 2nd, there's a conflict with a 9 a.m. virtual LRSD special board meeting. So how will we just have two of us not at that meeting or change the date? What would we do with that?
Thank you, Trustee Long. That is a 1-hour virtual meeting, and we will move it to later in the day. When we set that meeting for our 9 a.m., we knew that it may be in conflict. We were still waiting for this piece. And so as a board, we will decide on what time is best in the day and move that 1-hour virtual special meeting to later in the day to make sure that all trustees can attend. So any other discussion around the land-based camp recommendation? Okay, so the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve a delegate to attend the land-based camp on May 2nd at Castle Resort, and that Trustee Long and Trustee Gimber be the representatives. All in favor? That is passed. Okay, perfect. We'll now move on to E5. This is a request for ministerial approval on the sale of the real property in Claresholm Division office. An offer has been received and agreed upon price has been determined for the sale of the Clares Home Division office. Senior administration will discuss the details of the offer in camera as part of the process and in accordance with the disposal of property regulation 2 or more appraisals were acquired. The property was put out to tender. No reasonable bids were received. Procurement process was utilized to acquire the realtor. The property has been listed since April 2020 and has received an offer to be considered. The sale of the property is over $100,000 and requires the approval of the Minister of Education. This recommendation is that the Board of Trustees deem the Clares Home Division office facility and land surplus to the school board needs and request the ministerial approval to sell the property. Can I get someone to make this motion? Trustee Yagos. And can I get someone to make a motion to go in camera? Okay, Trustee Stankiewicz. At this time, we will move in camera to discuss the details. Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to go out of camera? Trustee Hodges at 9:50. Okay. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees deem the Claresholm Division office facility and land surplus to the school board's needs and request for ministerial approval to sell the property. Trustee Yagos, did you want to speak to this motion?
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Perry to give the information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Yegas. Just a little bit about the agenda item. Like it mentions there, the board has received an offer to purchase of the Claresholm Division Office facility and land. This property has been on the market for about 2 years, since 2020. It has had minimal activity. It has had some smaller offers of that were not considered reasonable and never brought to this point in time. The details were provided to the board in camera to protect the ability to negotiate the sale of the property. Because of this is real property, and like it says in the pre-blurb, not sure if that's a word, but anything over 100,000 in real property needs ministerial approval. So the board can approve it through a motion, but it still is required to go to the minister for approval. They will consider the information provided as it reflects on the appraisals received, the work that needs to be done in the facility, the previous interest in the facility, and so forth. So those are the types of things that we would include in the letter. And so if there's any additional information that is not confidential and the board would like to ask me, then I'm more than willing to answer those questions. But I think at this point, that's the information that I have provided. It is a conditional sale. So there are conditions. Sorry, I just remembered additional things to identify, but it is a conditional offer, sorry. And there is some due diligence on the part of the purchaser as far as environmental scans and things of that nature. So it's an offer at this point, and conditions would have to be removed. The only conditions the board has is board approval and the minister approval. And so once we have those items, then the purchaser would have time to do their due diligence in looking into the facility and then sign off on the conditions there for the final sale of the property. But it's good to get to this point. So I'll leave it at that. And if there's any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Are there any questions that the trustees have at this time? Okay, Trustee Toon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really excited for today. I know it's been for sale for quite a long time. It's bittersweet. It's an amazing location and a lot of great memories as a new trustee attending board meetings in Claresholm. I appreciated the drive a little bit. Not that Fort McLeod isn't nice, and this is an amazing building, but excited for this day. I know the two questions that I'm going to get asked by the public is what did it sell for? And just to clarify, after we get approval for all that, will that number be made public?
Yes, it will be. Yep.
Thank you. And the other question is going to be, and I don't know if you can answer this at this time, but do you know what the intended use is of the purchaser for the property? That's going to be something that the people in my area in particular are going to have questions about.
At this point in time, it's a group that has put forward the offer. I do not understand what their intended use for is at this time. So I guess I haven't had conversations with them. It's been through a realtor, and so I don't have information with regards to that, but it might become clearer as the process goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the trustees at this time? Seeing none. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees deem the Claresholm Division Office facility and land surplus to the school board's needs and request for ministerial approval to sell the property. Was moved by Trustee Yeagos. All in favor? And that is passed. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, we are now going to move to E6. Attached for your review is a draft of proposed board meeting and meeting of the whole dates for the 2022-2023 school year. I will not read all the dates, but we have them in front of us here. And Mr. Seguin will speak to this, but the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed meeting dates for the September 2022-2023 regular board and meeting of the whole meetings as presented or amended. And can I get someone to make this motion? Trustee Stankiewicz? Sorry, Trustee Hodges. We'll go with Trustee Stankiewicz. Did you want to speak to this, Trustee Stankiewicz?
I'll let Mr. Seguin speak to it.
All right, thank you so much. You've had a chance to review the proposed dates. I'll just take you a little bit through the process and then answer any questions if I can for you. So first of all, I spoke with the town of Fort Macleod, as you know, this is a shared space, and they have certain dates that they have been meeting on for years as well. I tried to schedule the committee of the whole meetings prior to the regular board meetings, usually 2 weeks in advance, but on occasion there had to be some adjustments due to holidays and other conflicts. So you'll see at times they are only a week apart. I also tried to stay with Mondays for our meetings. So if there was a holiday Monday, tried to move the meeting of the whole to the following week to stay with a consistent day of the week for the board meetings. The town has evening meetings on some of these days, and so it works best if we can finish up in this room by 4 p.m. so that they can do the preparations for their evening meeting. We could always still move into the next room and finish up the meeting if we were beyond 4. So with that, I'll just ask if you have any questions.
Looks like Mr. Perry has something to add.
I'll just add that from a financial perspective and bringing financial information, so the audit committee meeting, getting the information and bringing that to the board, this setup is very good for that process. So I just thought I would throw that out there.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Okay. Seeing no other questions. Oh, Trustee Hodges, you're so close. Just poke me next time. Okay, go ahead,
okay.
Trustee Hodges.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing forth these meetings. I know we've had to switch our meeting dates a few times, hoping that there would be a little bit more consistency now, maybe going into the future. I do know that there might be some conflicts with our press attending our meetings on Mondays, but I know we can't accommodate everybody, but I just wanted to make note of that.
Thanks, Trustee Hodges. And we also, now that our meetings are recorded and live, it makes it a little bit easier for the press to have access to it after. And so that's one way that we try to accommodate sharing our meetings with the public and with the press. So any other questions? Trustee Toon?
Thank you. I'd like to propose an amendment that we combine, as we have in the past, our December board meeting and committee of the whole meeting, as well as our February and June. February being a short month, it's hard to with the week off, and with December as well. It's and June being the 3 busier times. I know for at the schools and as well as our staff, that we combine those dates and make it more efficient for our calendar. But I really love the consistency of this approach going forward.
Thank you. Trustee Toon. So Trustee Toon's amendment, which we will only be speaking about the amendment now, is that we combine the meeting of the whole and the board meeting for December, February, and June. Are you proposing a date, or are you fine with using either the meeting of the whole or the board meeting date? Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
I think if we allowed men to look at that and bring that back, if we approve it in principle, and then they can bring the dates that would work best in the scheduling, like just December, looking at that, I think that maybe the one further away from Christmas might be more appropriate, but whatever admin's recommendation on that, and same with June, maybe further away from the end of school when it's busier for administration, but I'm fine with approving it with that amendment.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Toon. Trustee Hodges?
I appreciate the fact that you, for being concise and maybe combining some of these dates. Sometimes in the past, though, we've left the dates, and then if they weren't needed, we've canceled them. Just because they were placeholders, and if the board needed a date, then it was already set in place, and it was already in admin's calendars. So I appreciate the fact that you want to combine some of these dates, but I just feel that in the past, sometimes we've needed dates and it's been a struggle to get them. So I just wondered if there's any consideration for leaving them, but knowing that the potential to cancel is there.
Thanks, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Stankiewicz, and then Trustee Yagos.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges, for bringing up that point. I concur.
Trustee Yagos?
I'm looking at the December 19th date. Usually we have a lot of Christmas concert, well, maybe in the future we will have a lot of Christmas concerts, and I think, and they will probably be in person now that everything is, so there could be a real conflict at that time, so that would be the one date I would look at in terms of having, the December one, I was having a meeting of the whole and a board meeting a little earlier, if it would work out that way. So anyway, I can't make well, I guess I can make an amendment to the amendment, can't I? So I would make an amendment just to have the December date so that we would have a board meeting and a meeting of the whole on that December 12th, if that is not a problem with central office. Don't put that into the, but I just would add all that, add that on as an addendum so that they could say in one way or another.
Okay, so your amendment to the amendment would be to combine the meeting of the whole of the board meetings for December, February, and June with the December date board meeting and meeting of the whole being combined on December 12th. Is that right?
I wouldn't do, what are the other, February and June.
Oh, so you're just, okay, so.
Yeah. The only one I would concern
Okay.
is the
Okay,
December one.
thank you. Okay, Trustee Toon, would you consider that a friendly amendment?
I'm going to be difficult today and say no.
Okay, that's fine. So now we're only discussing the amendment to the amendment. So the amendment is that we combine the December date board meeting and meeting of the whole on December 12th, 2022. Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
Excluding the, I concur with Trustee Yegas in saying that December is the 19th. I remember the last time when we had Christmas concerts and we had a later in the month meeting date. I missed 3 Christmas concerts because of the board meeting, so it was really unfortunate. That's an amazing time to get out in our schools and see the kids and see our teachers. I think June is another one of those dates. We have lots of end of school barbecues, so having a meeting date on possibility of 26th of June, we have schools that are completely done by then or wrapping up because of elementary schools have extra dates. So those two are, to me, are no-brainers to include in there, and we've never, excluding the February date, we never have a committee of the whole meeting. Since I've been a trustee 8 years, we don't have committee of the whole meetings in February because it's such a short month. You have that week off school in there, plus you have semester break in January. So you have multiple days. You could have only 3 operational or 4 operational dates in between 2 meetings. So that's taxing on staff. So that's why we've never done that. So to me, that's why I don't support this amendment, that taking out those extra dates is really hard on staff. And this is what I get the placeholder rationale, but we have so many other dates in there that we should have the ability to get our work done within those dates.
Thanks, Trustee Toon. Trustee Yagos?
Now that he gave the rationale, I will say the first one that take the rest of it away and say yes, December, whatever date it was, and then do the other two. We could just do them whenever.
Okay, so her amendment would be combined December board meeting and meeting of the whole on December 12th, 2022, as well as combining the February and June dates. Is that correct? Because she wants to add the date in. Thank you, Trustee Yegas. We're going to go to Trustee, oh, I see him. Trustee Long had his hand up first. Trustee Long, do you want to hear from Mr. Perry first? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Perry.
Okay, thank you. The 12th is a Monday, and December is the first quarterly report brought to the board. That would be really challenging for the audit committee to meet in advance of that date, because we're talking the 9th and we're just finalizing some things. So if it was a day or two later, it would be consistent with what we're currently doing and give us some ability to do that. But the 12th being a Monday would not give the audit committee time to meet and bring that to the board.
Thanks, Mr. Perry. Trustee Long?
Yeah, I don't support the amendment. I would just as soon have the dates that we have on there. I think it's probably easier to cancel meetings than to find we're not accomplishing our commitments and have to add meetings in those months. Some of our meetings have already gone quite long. So I think if we see a month before in January that we need to make a change, or February I should say, we can take those meetings out, adjust as we go throughout the year. But I would prefer to leave these meetings on there, have concrete times and work with those as necessary.
Thank you, Trustee Long. We're just speaking on the amendment to the amendment, which is adding in the December 12th piece. Is there any more conversation on adding in that specific date before we vote on the amendment to the amendment? No. Go ahead, Trustee Yagos. I'll let you close on it.
Oh, okay. One of the reasons is that, yes, we can. I always feel we can change a meeting of the whole. But I always have a problem when we start to change, unless there is a really, really excellent reason, something that comes up, changing our regular board meeting dates, because the public, we publish these, and the public knows about them. And it's just like in municipal government, we should be very consistent with this, because if people want to come or want to, I mean, I know these are put online and everything else, but I think our regular board meeting should stay the same unless there's an emergency. Our meeting of the whole, that could be changed. So that's one of the reasons I would like to have it. Now, I do realize December the 19th, I'm sorry, December the 12th, yes, maybe we'll have to look at that date in terms of putting it, because I really don't like having that last week before holidays. There is so much going on, and when we have a board meeting, that takes us out of the schools, which isn't a very good thing. I think we, as trustees, we should be, especially now. We haven't been to concerts for a couple years, and especially now, I think we should be going to concerts.
Thank you, Trustee Yagos. So the amendment to the amendment is to combine December board meeting and meeting of the whole on December 12th, 2022, as well as combining the February and June dates. We're just voting on making that amendment, which adds the December, and then we'll go back and discuss the amendment and whether or not we're going to. I was gonna call the question. Darrell, go ahead, Mr. Seguin.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm all for less meetings. However, I just want to bring to the attention of the board that for the last couple of years in June, We typically have the board CEO evaluation as one full day. So then there would need to be another day for the board meeting.
Yep. But first we have to vote on the amendment. So we're just voting on the amendment to the amendment, which adds the date of the 12th. I'm gonna call it. Okay. We can always change that, but. She already closed.
I'll change it to the 13th then, if that is going to be a possibility. It doesn't matter that date.
Okay, listen, I'm calling it. We're voting on the amendment to the amendment to add the specific date of December 12th, okay? I am all in favor. Okay, perfect. That is not passed. Now, the amendment is combined meeting of the whole and board meeting for December, February, and June dates. That's open-ended. Trustee Toon said that we could get recommended dates if we need to from administration. So that is now the amendment that's on the floor. Trustee Toon, go ahead. We can have discussion about the amendment.
Thank you. I think that this discussion is great. Some of the concerns brought up around the December reporting for the quarter, that is something that this motion can address because it says combining those dates, and we're going to get a recommendation on those specific months coming forward, as well as Superintendent mentioned the June date. We can still combine our June committee of the whole and that date and still have a date for CEO evaluation, because we set additional dates. So we're not meeting twice in June, we're meeting 3 times in June. And I think that providing that flexibility for them to come back with those recommendations is key. At the same time, as mentioned before by Trustee Yegas, we need to be in the schools as much as we can when, especially for regular invited functions, when the community's there, and it's not good optics if we're sitting here in Fort Macleod while they're all meeting as a community in our schools and we're not helping support that. So
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So the motion on the floor is that we combined the meeting of the whole and the board meeting for December, February, and June dates. Is there any more discussion around this? Okay, perfect. So I will call the question on the amendment. So if you vote in favor of this, then you are voting in favor of combining those 3 meeting dates and then approving. Then we'll go back and approve. And if you vote against it, then you would want to keep it the same as it is currently presented. Okay? So all in favor of the amendment? Okay? And that is defeated. So we'll go back to the regular motion that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed meeting dates for the 2022-2023 regular board and meeting of the whole meetings as presented, unless there's further discussion or other amendments at this time. Go ahead, Trustee Toon. You shut your mic off.
that doesn't help. No, that doesn't help. Yeah, I really struggle with this. I get placeholders and the importance of having dates available, but we're going against what we've done in the past and what has worked. Having 2 meetings in December, I think, is really a bit much when you look at the amount of meetings we have in November, the amount of time we're together in November and October, and that the fall leading up to that, and then you're bringing us together in January and February 4 times when you have so many days we're out and the administration is out in between there. I'm going to vote against this because I don't feel that it's fiscally responsible or being good governors of the system to have so many dates that we've never used before in there, tying up the calendar and potentially taking up administration's time.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Trustee Long?
Even though these dates are going to be possibly be booked, it doesn't mean that when November rolls around that we don't see we need to make a change in December. It's just that these meetings now are planned, we have them booked, we have this room, and if we need to have the meetings, we don't need to make any changements or adjustments. And if there is a reason, or we can accomplish all our tasks in one meeting in December, we can always make those changes. But it's much more difficult when we share this room just to find out later on, come November, oh, we need to have 2 meetings in December, and now try to book a room. Better to have the room and cancel if necessary.
Thank you, Trustee Long. Trustee Stangiewicz?
Thank you, Trustee Long. You spoke to my point.
Thank you.
concur.
Okay, if there's no further, Trustee Yagos?
I would like to say that when we say the regular board meeting dates are going to be on this day, I would like to leave those dates and not change them unless there is an emergency situation. And I feel that if we're going to start changing that, the meeting of the whole doesn't matter. We could change that. But I don't feel that a regular board meeting date should ever be changed, or I shouldn't say that should ever be changed, but unless it is absolutely necessary. And by approving this, we're sending this out to the public and letting them know when our meeting dates are. And I don't think that we should be looking at changing them a day before unless it's absolutely necessary, or I'm sorry, a meeting before.
Point of order, Madam Chair. We're not discussing changing dates at this time come November. What meetings we're canceling in December, that's not what we're discussing at this time. We're discussing whether to book these dates for this room. Any discussion about what meetings would be changed would come afterwards.
Thank you, Trustee Long. We have Trustee Hodges and then Trustee Tune.
I just would like to move to suspend this conversation until after our presentation, as this conversation might take longer than our presentation is here, if that's okay with the board.
Okay. Trustee Stangiewicz?
I'd like to call the question.
Sorry, Trustee
Point of
Tune was
order,
next.
Madam Chair, I was in the speaking queue,
Yeah.
and I would support Trustee Hodges' motion to suspend.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Trustee Stangiewicz, it was Trustee, but before, I should have went to Trustee Tune. So Trustee Hodges moved that we suspend this. We need 2/3 of the vote. So all in favor of suspending the conversation and moving to F1, our presentation from Livingstone leaders. All in favor? Okay, perfect, that's passed. We'll come back to this. And we will move to our Livingstone leaders. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for coming over. We know you have a big day today. So I'll just read this while you guys come on up. We have teacher advisors Mitchell Durham and Eliza Gross will present to the Board of Trustees regarding the Livingstone leaders. Every student can make a difference every day, reflecting on the year and sharing their successes, challenge, growth, and looking forward to the future and how they want to do more. Okay, so we'll turn it over to you guys. Thanks for coming over.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, we do need you guys to use the mics just because when it's recorded, it's hard to hear if we don't have the mics, so.
Hello. Oh, there we go. We, as Livingston leaders, our executive team, Eliza and I, are very excited to be here today to represent Livingston leaders, the whole group. They are currently at the Fort McLeod District Community Hall, I believe doing different dyads and potentially some cahoots while we are not there. So they're having a great time already, and we're looking forward to join them. I could talk lots about Livingston leaders and the amazing things that we do, but I think it makes a lot more sense for the people behind me to talk about it. So I am just here to say hello. We are the Livingston leaders. We make a difference every day as students and as advisors, and I'm going to pass it over to our first person for the next slide.
Hi, my name is McKinley. I'm the secretary on our leadership board. So I just want to talk about who we are a little bit. We are leaders who strive to make a difference in our schools and communities. We've been working towards making more accepting communities in our schools and as a division. We're 5 students. Each of us has our little we each represent each of our schools. So there's one advisor from each school, Eliza and Mitchell. And we have Jasmine from JT Foster, Topher from CCHS. We have me from Livingston, Abby from MHHS, Anastasia, who's not here, and Kyra. Yes, I did pronounce it right. We've had discussions over this. Yeah, so we have all of us representing areas of our school, and we just work together to just try to make our schools more accepting, try to work on different activities like the retreat we're having today. Yeah.
That's me. I'm Lydia from FP Walsh. I'm the treasurer for Livingston Leaders. And our purpose and vision is to inspire and champion student leadership in our schools. We try to make an authentic, positive impact on our school culture, help create confidence and a sense of belonging. We promote ownership for learning and for leadership, empower students to create a supportive, safe school environment, build staff leadership capacity, and we capture and honor student voice. So there's lots of ways that we do that, but we try to guide leadership in our schools and to just overall support a safe and accepting community in our schools.
I'm Abigail from Matthew Halton High School, and behind you is a bunch of pictures from our last retreat, where we met together as a team and we learned how to work across a multi-school division with each other and learning how to accept different personalities, different traits. We are building the ideas of what we need to do in further years and what we need to do today and tomorrow. So currently today we're having another conference where we're meeting and we're planning a school-wide activity, division-wide activity for the next year, where we're going to intertwine students from all of the schools into a small competition. And we also have different opportunities, like on May 17th, we have been invited to a conference at the University of Lethbridge, which we would love to go to.
Hello again. So with our school, we've been trying to increase our school spirit since we had the COVID quarantining. We had to split up. Our school is a K-12 school, so we really saw the division between our elementary and our high school ends. So what we've been trying to do this year is try to make a safer and more inclusive environment for everyone. So we've had pep rallies where we've finally been able to have our assemblies, have everyone in the same building. With our assemblies, we've been trying to, and pep rallies, we've been trying to include everyone, so all our elementary sports with our high school sports. But instead of just having our basketball, we also include our track and field. We want to include all of the people and give all of the athletes our their own divided attention and really rep them up. We also had a teacher move to a different school, so we had a classroom that was empty. We've been trying to kind of upgrade it so that we have a more comfortable environment in our schools. So we had couches, and we've just we moved bigger tables so that it's more of a safe space. We recently had a GSA put in, so yeah, we had a lot of changes this year. It was great.
So in Halton, we have a very diverse community between athletes and the academics and the people who just like to stay in the corner. So we have developed a house system, almost like Hogwarts in the Harry Potter movie, where every student has been placed into a house. At the beginning of the year, we always do a welcoming in ceremony, and every activity we put on, we incorporate our points system or our house. And at the end of this year, we will be implementing, the winning team will get a barbecue and a huge fiesta. But monthly, twice a month, we do one activity that is to promote just joining together and getting to learn about all the other students that are in your team and just incorporating a more family-like community amongst our school. And then we also do a mental health activity once a month. So, and a great example of that would be what we did this month, which we all wrote a bunch of different sticky notes and we placed them on the bathroom mirrors of just encouraging things and like reaching out to Holly, our one lady, our counselor, if you need her, and just providing the support for our students coming out of COVID.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm a representative of JT Foster. I guess our leadership team at JT has really been working on boosting morale amongst our student body. We lost a lot of it in the pandemic, and I guess a lot of the senior high especially have noticed that we're not bonding as well as we've seen in previous years, especially when we were in junior high because our student body was super tight-knit. And I guess one of our major steps there was reindeer games is like a school tradition. And it really encourages us to get to learn about the kids in our school, not just the kids in our class or maybe the kids that we do sports with. And coming up in early June, we are kind of encouraging more engagement in our Relay for Life. It's kind of like a cancer fundraiser for the Canadian Cancer Society, and it's meant to be a lot of fun and it engages the whole community too. So we're really excited for that.
Hello, my name is Kyra. I am from Granham. I am the representative. In our school, we have a very small school, but because of that, a lot of us are very close. And we do like to do a lot of activities to inquire our whole entire school. Ours is K to 9. We do these Granham Greatnesses, which inquire us getting cards saying who we've helped or we've done a good deed, of being a kind student to others and showing responsibility of what we can do. One of the activities we like to do is synergy groups, which inquire every grade to go in these groups they like to do, like music, dance, art, and even sometimes some sports groups, and which allows everybody to get to know each other, do things for fun, and like be more together, close, instead of separating each other into different sections like younger kids or older kids. Our school likes to look out for everybody, and if they have a struggle, they can go to any teacher and get some help. We even have a lovely counselor named Shannon. She is wonderful, and she takes after everyone who needs the help and looks at everybody's problems and puts a positive side to things. We have many great staff members who help everybody. Some of us students also have gained more trust and have been able to help others in our school. And that's all I really have.
Okay, so for FP Walsh, our little leadership group, our regional leadership, we try to build our school leadership by doing things like leading the meetings. So every week on Thursday, we meet with our school leadership, and our regional council has been leading those meetings, taking attendance, trying to be those examples and not just making Mr. Durham do it all the time. So it's been a little bit hard coming out of COVID and still having restrictions, trying to plan fun activities and have students come together, and we're trying to initiate that connection again. But we have done some really fun things. For Christmas, we have this really awesome tradition at Walsh of this thing called Shark Week, which is an abbreviation, I believe, for super hype, awesome, really cool with a K week. So what we do for that is we have the students make their own teams, and it's middle school and high school, so it gives kids a chance to interact and compete against each other, and the teachers always put in a team, so we get to compete against them. And they bring in a food donation for the food drive that we do in order to enter. And so then we just have activities throughout a week, and people get eliminated, and then we have an epic lip sync battle at the end of it. And this year it ended up being our senior team against the teachers, and might I say the senior team won, but yeah, so that was really fun. We just had our first in-person assembly for 2 years of COVID, and it was a success. We had the band play, we had our bucket drummers in the school play, we did a relay race with random volunteers, and it was really good. We had several teachers give us positive comments about the assembly being really well done. So yeah, we've been doing lots of fun things. We have our leadership team do the morning announcements every Wednesday, and they've gotten pretty creative with that. We've had a rap for one of our morning announcements. Lots of cool things happening at our school, so that's Walsh.
Hi, I'm Topher from CCHS. Our school, or we've done a bunch of things. Like currently, we're working on hockey intramurals, where or floor hockey intramurals, where we get kids who want to play hockey, and then they can, and then we had a draft, and then we and then we split up into different teams. And I think our first game is actually today, and then depending on how those go, we might have like other sports intramurals. And as soon as the restrictions got lifted a little bit, we decided to have a school dance where we had and then we had like a $5 admission fee, and then we had them bring in like a food item for our local food bank. We had our first assembly in quite a while, and then we had a guest speaker. He didn't have any legs or arms, so he was there to show us that you could do anything, even if you don't have as much as everybody else does. I don't really know what else we're doing. I gotta think. I guess that's mostly it since COVID has happened. We're trying to, we've split up into like a leadership option and then like a student council, so that we can get as many things happening at once, like holiday events where we had like a haunted house on our stage for Halloween, and we had a lot of candygrams, like a lot of candygrams. I think that's mostly it.
So our executive representative from WCCHS couldn't be here today, but amazing things coming from WCCHS. And I know that our advisor for WCCHS, Alyssa Fisher, she is amazing and has been meeting as much as possible with her student leaders and working to do those amazing things. So we can always set up an update for WCCHS as well too.
In terms of the future, because we really would love to continue this group long term, we'd love to go and continue ongoing learning, doing those conferences and workshops and just really allowing our young leaders to kind of grow and be leaders within their community, not just within their school. And engaging students is a huge part of that leadership. So like Abby mentioned earlier, we want to introduce that division-wide activity, really encourage people to get to know, I guess, outside of just a sheltered little environment. And I mean that in a positive connotation, not like, and absolutely building capacity, just inspiring students to continue their leadership and their journeys and just to really step it up, just don't be afraid to take charge if you need to.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eliza Gross. I have such a privilege of working with these and all the other amazing young leaders that we have as part of Livingston Leaders. I want to first of all say how proud I am of you guys. Well done. The events that these students have shared have been led by the students. And I think that's one of the most amazing things is that we are trying to develop with your support, with the board's support and financial backing, and which is greatly appreciated and needed, is that we can continue to develop this leadership. We are hoping to be part of CSLIC, which will be in October of next year. Originally, it was planned to be in person out on the East Coast, which we were all really jazzed about, but it looks like it'll be a hybrid option. So we're still want to be part of that, and we want to continue to offer great opportunities for these students. So yeah, right now we want to open it up to questions that you as a board may have.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you guys being here, and especially we know that you've been looking forward to getting together in person with all your leaders. And so the fact that these fell on the same day was great because we get to have you all here, but we don't want to keep you too long from being with all of the Livingston leaders. So I think we have a question from Trustee Hodges.
Not so much a question, but just more of a comment. I started out when I was a trustee on this committee. It wasn't Livingston Leaders at the time, and it was more of us leading the kids and planning the meetings. And this is the first year that I actually haven't been on this committee because I wanted everybody else to see how amazing it is. And so I appreciate you guys coming here, and thank you for doing everything amazing. I love the direction that this Livingston Leaders is headed, and that it is all student-led. And I mean, when we as a division set our vision, mission, and that's how we do this, is by looking at what you guys want to do and what you want to see happen in the future and in your schools. And so thank you for everything you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Toon?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Trustee Hodges says. You guys are amazing leaders in your school, and you bring so much to each one of your schools, and I want you to keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I am on this committee, and I've been in some of the meetings, and I'm really hoping to stop by this afternoon, depending how things go. And I came in second twice on the Cahoots at our last meeting, and it's really been sitting with me. So I hope there's a Kahoot this afternoon that I can take part in and maybe pull off that win. We'll see. But we're very proud of you and the leadership that you have in the division, but also what you're doing for the schools. We're constantly talking about mental health and how we can help bring up that mental health in our school, especially since COVID. And as much as we talk about it and brainstorm here, the things that you guys are talking about and making happen in the school are making such a difference, and we appreciate you so much. So please enjoy the rest of your day together with leadership, and hopefully I'll get to see you this afternoon. But if not, I hope it's just a fantastic day. And on behalf of the board, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate you all.
Thank you so much. I also want to remind the board, these are fantastic individuals along with the rest of the team back there to hear student voice. And so student voice is important in the decisions that we make to support our students and their education and also their future. So thank you so much again for having us.
Trustee Long? Oh, they're doing pictures. Thanks, Livingston leaders. I know, did Kyra know her principal would be here when she was doing that? Trustee Long?
Yeah, I think we should consider something out of its scheduled order. I move we suspend the rules and consider moving to F2. How do I call any updates? Before we go back to our postponed meeting of the whole and board meeting dates, because Mr. Nick Beer is here our colony principal, and he's been waiting for a little while, and I think if everybody approves, we should have him go first before we do our meeting dates.
Thank you, Trustee Long. So we need 2/3 vote on that. The motion is that we suspend the rules and consider moving to F2 at this time, which would be out of order. All of those in favor? Perfect, that is passed. And with that, we will invite Mr. Nick Beer, the Colony School Principal, to provide the board with an update of the colonies in the Livingstone School range. Thank you for coming today, Mr. Beer, and we apologize for the delay.
Okay, first of all, I asked them for a plug and they did not provide it. And I try not to follow kids because that's a tough act to follow. I know some of you, not all of you. My name is Nick Beer. I'm the principal of Colony Schools in Livingstone Range. I'm also the principal of Granham School up in Granham. Today we're here to talk about Colony Schools. I was actually, before I came here, I was out at Greenwood Colony, which is just south of town on Highway 2, visiting with the kids and the teacher there, and the German teacher there as well. So, and then when I leave here, Richard tells me I have to go upstairs and talk to him, but then after that I'm going to visit another couple colonies south toward Glenwood down that highway. So it's part of my role is visiting colonies. When Daryl told me that he would like me to take on this role, I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I do. So it was surprising, and it was a pleasant surprise for me. Our vision and mission are up there. I'm not going to read to you. I'll assume that you're all literate. And so, but a big part of the colony goal is to provide meaningful education to colony students. Not all the colonies value education like we would hope. They value parts of education, especially literacy and numeracy. But they don't value education in the same way that I would as an educator and that you probably do as trustees. But that doesn't mean that there's no value put on school. It just looks a little bit different. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. So these are our colonies. They're kind of literally all over the map. They go, the furthest one to the west is north of Lumbrick. I almost said Livingston, but that's the school. And it's called Livingstone Colony. And then there's a couple by Pincher, and then we go south as far as south of Hill Spring, and that's Waterton Colony. I'm going to try to get there this afternoon. And then they go as far north as between Staveley and Nanton, and as far east as out by Lomond, Vulcan area. So they kind of spread. Randy Bonnet, who's the vice principal, and myself, we spend on days where we try to get to colonies, we try to go to more than one because they're kind of grouped. But you do put some miles on your car trying to get to the colonies. They're all very different. That was one thing that surprised me as well. Even between Darius Light and Laura Light colonies, they're very different. Every colony has its own kind of culture, and you can't compare them. They would like you to compare them, but that's another thing you can't do, is tell one colony what another colony is doing. And we have teachers on every colonies. We have EAs on some colonies, and then there's a German teacher on every colony too. And the German teacher's role is to teach German, but they're also the liaison between the teacher and the rest of the colony members. Some teachers have really strong relationships with their colonies, especially if they've been there for an extended period of time. And so then they're more comfortable going to families directly. But newer teachers or teachers that haven't built that relationship yet, they'll often go to the German teacher who will take concerns to the families, and vice versa. The families will come to the German teacher who will go to the teacher, and if it's not resolved there, then the German teachers will come to me. There are a few families who have decided they should come straight to me as well, and I'm not sure how they get my number, but I get random texts and I don't even know who's texting me, and they'll say, hey, can you call me, I have an issue. And when I call them, I don't really know who I'm talking to until I phone them. So This is what our colonies look like this year. There are 4 Lair Lake colonies: Clear Lake, Greenwood, which I was at this morning, Parkland, and Willow Creek. And then there are 9 Darius Lake colonies. You can tell instantly what you're on, because if you don't see any grass, if it's just gravel, you're on a Lair Lake colony. If you see grass and some nicer buildings, you're probably on a Darius Lake colony. The Lair Lake colonies tend to be more conservative. They don't let us use technology in schools as much. They don't even like some of them don't even like the teacher to have their phone out at school or to have a computer out at school. Whereas the Darius Lake colonies, and again, they vary based on the colony, but some of them have computers and smartboards, and it looks like a regular classroom when you walk in there. But they're more likely to allow you to use technology in school. They're more likely to allow the teacher to show videos and things like that. A little less conservative. They're also more likely to have a little bit more, actually a surprising amount of worldly knowledge that you wouldn't expect. They start talking to you about music, and how did you hear that? And so they have connections there as well. This year we have 226 students on colonies, 13 teachers, and 9.6, although it's closer to 12. The 0.6 isn't actually a sixth, well, 6/10 of a person, and spread out on the colonies depending on need. I should also say our colonies vary in numbers, so our smallest one is Waterton, who's at 6 students right now and projected to go down. And our biggest one is at Livingstone, which is 27 and is going to be 29 next year. So they vary in size students-wise as well. We do have a couple of Darius Lake colonies who are actually allowing their students to go to school past grade 9. So typically they finish school right at 15. So 15 and they're done. On their birthday, not coming back to school. And so this year in Waterton, for example, we started with 8 students and we're down to 6. By the end of the year, we'll be down to 5. And so they're done, and they're not, the next day, they're not coming back. We do have a few, Pincher Creek Colony and Jumbo Valley Colony, that have students continuing past grade 9 and are working in high school. We have one student in Pincher who's on pace to graduate early next year. When he's done his schooling this year, he's in grade 11. He'll have one course left that he'll need to finish. I can't remember if it's LA or social, but then he's done. That's the only course he'll have left. We had him challenge a couple courses early because there were no diploma exams. And so we had him do a couple of his grade 12 courses early. His goal is to become a mechanic, so they'll actually have their very own journeyman mechanic on the colony, so they won't have to call people in to inspect stuff because the journeyman will be right there. And there are several other students at that colony that are in grade 10 that are started down that path as well and are hoping to go into various trades. It's kind of an interesting concept to have those tradespeople right on the colony, and so they're pushing a little. That colony pushes a little bit more to have students continue on past grade 9. So Randy Bonnet has been the one who's supporting the high school. He's got a wealth of high school experience, so he goes out and meets the kids. He marks their stuff. Some of their stuff is online, and so that's handled by Pursuits and the virtual school. And we track their credits and try to get them through school. There is another, actually one female student at Jumbo Valley Colony who's in grade 11 who's also working towards her high school diploma. We're not sure what she's going to do after high school. She's not sure what she wants to do after high school, but she is sure that she wants to finish. So it's interesting to see that trend kind of start. And we're expecting a couple more, especially from Pincher Colony, when they finish grade 9 this year, to be taking grade 10 courses, or so they tell us right now. They all say they're going to, but we only ever have a few of them that follow through. So at the start of this year, we're told that 5 students were going to do grade 10 at Pincher Colony, but only 2 actually followed through. So it kind of depends. But this year we have a literacy focus, and so as part of the recovery fund from the government, we couldn't hire somebody to go to every colony. We would pay so much in mileage, it just wasn't feasible. And so we decided to kind of tackle it in-house. So we had Dr. Kara come and present to all of our colony staff, teachers, and educational assistants so that they would all have the training to be able to put this literacy intervention in place. And so depending on the colony, it looks a little bit different on each colonies. We also increased educational assistant times at several colonies to give them a little bit more time to do this intervention with students. So they're all trained. They all have the materials. We bought materials for all the colonies so that they all had the materials they needed to run this literacy intervention for grades 1 to 3. If you don't know, Dr. Kara, it's not a program. It's a process. So there's no you have to use this book or this book. It's a process. It's based on phonological awareness, and so it's teaching kids sounds before you teach them letters, names before you teach them sight words, which is popular with some. But it's more about sounds. It's about rhyming. It's about getting those building blocks of literacy before you jump into try to pushing them to read. And so that's the training. And so we have resources to support that. And some colony staff had their own resources, which work for that as well. So they're choosing to use different resources, which is fine as well. But we're just looking for that process of phonological awareness to give them strong building blocks for their reading. I should say, can you back up, sorry? I'll make it difficult for you. So here, the picture there is them working with their letters to make sounds for words there. And this came from, I'm going to forget. I asked for pictures and got flooded with pictures, so I can't remember which ones are from which colonies, but I think this is Spring Point Colony. Yes, Lacey. Sorry, Trustee Poitras.
Thanks, Principal Beer. Do you find that, or do you know if literacy and numeracy is a focus in their German school? Like, are they literate and numerate in German, and now we're trying to match that in English, or is that not a focus as much when they're doing their German school, or are you not sure?
Literacy definitely is a focus during German school. They do counting. I said do. That's a different story altogether. They do counting in German, so they do have to count in German, but their focus in German school is learning the German alphabet and learning how to speak and write German. So they speak mostly Low German, but they write High German, so that it's a little bit different. Not all, but a lot of the German instruction is very traditional. It's very rote, and so something like this is foreign to them, although they're seeing it more and more in their classrooms. But they have a very traditional pedagogy, so it's a lot of memorization, it's a lot of worksheets, it's a lot of writing lines, not as a punishment, but learning how to write. And so it looks a little bit different. Sorry, go ahead. Here's some examples. These came from Livingstone Colony. I was blown away by their poetry. I went to visit them, and they were super excited to share their poems with me. And I asked if I could bring them here, and I had pictures of probably 15 poems. So I kind of tried to weed it down, but these are the two I picked. And so the one on the left is a concrete poem, so it's supposed to take the shape of what it's talking about. You can see the religion aspect in there as well. They're very conservative Christian culture. And then the one on the right is more of a rhyming poem, a little bit of a free verse, so they had the choice of writing it. Actually, I'm not even sure what kind of poem that is. So, their ability to be creative surprised me, because when I thought colonies going in, I thought these conservative agricultural focused on very concrete things, but their ability to be creative in writing and in art, and you've probably seen some of their artwork on display, has really surprised me. So these students decided that they would take it upon themselves to write letters to some of their favorite teams, and were blown away by the response from the teams. And so the boy on the right, he got this card back and the shirt from the Edmonton Oilers, because they're the greatest team in the NHL. And so he was super happy. That's a huge rivalry on the colonies as well. When I said, so I'm an Oilers fan, but when I said today that they asked me for my prediction at Greenwood Colony, and I said I thought Calgary was going to beat Edmonton in the playoffs, as much as that pained me, and I thought I was going to start a fight. Like, it's intense, the rivalry. And so this boy was super happy that the Oilers wrote him back and sent him a hoodie. And so the boy on the right decided, well, hey, if he could write something to a team and got a response, let's see what the Calgary Stampeders will do. And so he wrote to the Stampeders, and all that swag showed up for him along with the letter. So they've started to branch out and not just write. They're learning to write for a purpose. Last year when I shared virtually, I shared a letter that one of the colony members had sent in to the Lethbridge Herald and had actually been published as a letter to the editor. So they're learning to write for a purpose as well. this is numeracy. So these kids are actually out playing math games and doing math work out on the playground because it was nice that day. Randy Bonnet is trained as our numeracy person, and so he gave diagnostic training to all of our colony staff. Each of our colonies has a numeracy kit. It's the CSL benchmarking kit that all of our schools in the division had, and we had one for colony schools that we were kind of sharing as needed. But when we decided that we needed to focus a little bit more on numeracy, we bought one for each colony. So each colony has their own kit so that they can run these interventions for, again, grades 1 to 3 students. We're trying to make sure that there are no gaps from the shutdowns that we had from COVID. Numeracy tends to be a strength on a lot of the colonies. They seem to really understand numbers. Problem solving is a bit more difficult for them. They have trouble with that abstract applying numbers at times. And sometimes it's the wording itself of the problems. But just giving them numbers to solve, they're pretty strong at. In the 2 years I've been principal of the colony schools, we spent a lot of time on literacy and numeracy. And so when Randy and I were talking, we want to spend a little bit more time on the culture of the schools. And it's hard to come up with a plan for that because it's not the culture of a school, it's the culture of 13 schools, but we try to come together as one as well. One thing we do want to do is we want to bring more culture and leadership to the staff. And so our goal, it was actually one of our goals for this year, and because of the numeracy and literacy interventions, it's kind of been pushed to the side. But one of our goals for next year is to have our colony staff trained in the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I know we have several facilitators here in the division. I'm one of them, but I would like to not facilitate to the own staff. I think there's some value to it coming from somebody who's already not telling you what to do. And not that we want to tell them what to do and tell them that they need to teach this to their students, but we want them to have that knowledge of those habits and them to have that piece of leadership as a staff. And I think it will help when we come together as a group of 25, 26 people to give us a common language to talk about and to give us that common piece that kind of grounds all of us in that area. So that's our plan moving forward to start addressing that culture and leadership piece at colony schools. I wanted to share a little bit about what's going on. So this is Spring Point Colony on the left. I think we're going to Spring Point in May. It's one of my favorite colonies to go to. I will deny that if you tell other colonies that I said that. Part of that is I got to sub out there a couple of days this year when the teacher was sick, and so I got to know these students pretty well. Waterton is another one. I've been out there. The teacher there is under evaluation this year because she's a new teacher. She's phenomenal, but I've been out there a lot this year for that, and I've also subbed out there a couple times when she's been sick, so you get to know those kids a little bit better on those colonies. So they're decorating pumpkins here. The leprechaun traps this year blew me away. Again, I shouldn't be anymore, but I'm surprised how similar they are to every other kid, which I shouldn't be because they're kids, but they love this. Even though they're told that the leprechauns aren't real, their traps are phenomenal, and it's impressive to see the creativity there, and also for them to walk you through how they're going to trap this fictional leprechaun. And there's more pictures of that here, and so they're bribing them with food, they're taunting them with signs, and so it's impressive to see. And then the one colony at Daly Creek out by Granham, she actually had one of the older girls come in and spring all the traps and make a mess of the classroom, and she even put little, like, I don't know what she used, but she dabbed something in ink and put little footprints on the floor and on the desks, and so they kind of went crazy with it, and it was very cool to see. The police also came and arrested some of our colony members, which they thought was super cool. I knew the police were going out there because they phoned and asked for contact information and asked if it would be okay for them to go out there. I was not expecting to get pictures of people in handcuffs and in the backseat of the truck. But again, they really they love visitors. They love when people come to visit. And so to have the police there and to have the sirens and lights on was super cool. Yes?
So was this something that the police initiated and they wanted to come out to our colonies within Livingston Range, or was this something that came from the colonies or yourself?
I wish I should take credit because nobody else is here, but no, the police phone me every year and ask for updated contact information and updated staffing lists and updated. Some of them, if they're new, they'll ask me where on the colony is the school, because if there's a call, they want to know where they have to go. They ask me for our lockdown procedure. This is the first one in the 2 years that I've done it who's asked me if they could actually go out there and visit. So it came from the police, and we've seen it actually in Granham School too. The police came up there and they were out playing on the playground with their kids, and they just asked if they could walk through the school and talk to people. They want kids to feel safe with the police, and they want to just not be there when they're trying to find something. Because the first 2 times police came to Granham School was because they needed to use my cameras to track down a car thief that had dragged a car past the school, and then they also used Granham School's parking lot to stage a major SWAT raid. And so it's kind of nice for them to come and just hang out with kids and not be there for other reasons. But yeah, this came from the RCMP. And some other, that's the Terry Fox run on the left, so they all had certificates there. Not all colonies participate to the same level, but they are all out walking, and this colony was particularly proud of it. And then some hand painting going on the other in the other pictures as well. And again, I'm super impressed by their creativity when it comes to their expression in art. So it's fun to visit and to see the cool things that are going on in colonies, things that I never would have expected if I wasn't out there as much as I am now. And I think that's all I've got. So, am I in my time frame? Perfect.
I didn't look when you started, but seems good. So thank you, Mr. Beer, for coming. We really appreciate learning more about our colonies. With COVID, we have not been able to visit the colonies in a couple of years, and we're looking forward to getting out to some of them, but want to make sure that we're respectful of their wishes of having visitors or not having visitors for the time being. Is there any questions or comments from any of the trustees at this time around the colonies? Trustee Toon? Sorry, I thought you had your hand up.
Sure.
I felt like you had something to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question regarding the pandemic and the effect on the students. How do you see that affecting the colony students differently than the students in your school in Granham or the other schools?
Well, the hardest thing on colonies is when we got shut down. Now, one time they were exempted, but the other times that they got shut down, there was no virtual option, right? So they couldn't meet with teachers at all during that time. And then on top of that, the colonies were very angry that they were being shut down. And so I got some interesting calls from people who just didn't want to be shut down. And so what you had is we had the German teacher, or in some cases 15, 16, 17-year-old girls teaching the students. So we were providing materials for them to study, and they were submitting those materials to the teacher. So we had kind of boxes that were swapped out. So the teachers would drop off a box, and then they would come and pick up, and then they would come and pick it up and drop off another box. And so there was kind of that drop-off stage. It didn't work well. Lots of colonies just didn't do it. And the ones that did try to do it, there still wasn't the same quality of instruction. And we're also dealing with people who, they don't start school until they're 6, and when they start school, it's often their first experience with English. And so, because they don't speak English unless they're speaking to somebody English. Like even when they speak to each other on the playground or in gym class, when you're teaching them gym, you have no idea what they're saying because they speak predominantly German. And so especially our younger students who were in grade 1 or grade 2, it was tough for them because they didn't have that English speaker there to hear, to get guidance from. Having said that, I haven't seen a huge drop-off like what you might expect. Our teachers have done a pretty good job of catching people up, and the colony students, for the most part, are pretty hard workers, and they want to be successful. And the other part of that, too, is because they come in 6 years old and they've not really spoken and definitely not written English before, we already expect them to be behind in grade 1 because they always are. So typically what we see is by grade 3, 4, they start catching up. And so when we got the test results saying they were behind, we weren't shocked. And what lots of teachers were saying to me was, well, yeah, they're behind according to the scale you're giving to me, but they're not really behind what I would expect them to be. And so I think there is a bit of a gap there, but it's not as bad as what we might have expected. And the other part of that is the government did exempt them from shutdowns a couple of times too. And so during that time, the teacher was still able to go out and was still able to teach on the colonies.
Thank you. Trustee Hodges?
Trustee Chun took my question, but I would just like to say that I appreciate you bringing us this presentation today because I've really missed going out to the colonies and reading stories. I love it when they all just pile around you and you can sit down and read them a story. It's so fun, or playing soccer on the field. So thank you for that.
And soccer on the field is intense.
Oh, yeah.
Soccer in the basement is dangerous. Yeah. Dodging pillars. And
yes.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Yagos?
I noticed you said Livingston Colony is going to have 29 students next year. That is a lot for a teacher that's what, K? Oh, no, that would be grade 1 to 9, really, eh? That is going to be a lot of students for a teacher
It is.
to work with. I do know they have more than one EA, but sometimes.
Yeah. Best case scenario from my perspective would to actually be to have 2 teachers there, but I haven't seen budget yet, and I don't know what will happen there because 2 teachers is 15 and 14 in a classroom doesn't really pay for 2 teachers, so I'm not sure what will happen there. But yes, and Willow Creek Colony in Claire's home will be at 29, not next year, but the year after. So we do have a couple of colonies that are getting big. There is talk of splitting, but I think we're 3 or 4 years off before that's happening. So.
Thank you so much. I just had a question around seeing students move past grade 9. Do you find that the students have the option to move past grade 9, or is it's your birthday and you're done, you're 15 now, you're done? Those students that you are seeing move forward, and you said that one colony was kind of pushing to get some of those journeymen and stuff. Do students have the option to continue after 15 at most colonies, or is it kind of up to the powers that be, I guess?
No, most colonies, they don't have the option. We have 3 colonies, 2 that are actively have students that are past grade 9, and 1 that is interested in going down that road. But for the most part, no, colonies, they want them to be at work, so they turn 15 and then they have a different role that they're fulfilling. And for the most part, and it's a cultural thing, for the most part, the students don't want to be in school. They're excited to be leaving at 15 because they don't see that the benefit to continuing on. And also for most of these students, they're not expecting to, like for me, I would tell my son, I would kill him if he dropped out at 15 because, you know, that's his future. His future's in his education. Whether he decides to go to university or pick up a trade or what he does, the more education he has, the more options he has. But on the colony, that's not the case unless they're going to leave the colony because they're going to go on the colony. They're going to be given a job no matter what their education is. It's usually strength-based, although I was talking to one of the older gentlemen at Greenwood today who tells me it's all politics and has nothing to do with strengths, so maybe not. But they're going to have a job, so they don't always see the value in going to school further because they're going to have a job and they're going to have a role on the colony anyway. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, again, we apologize for the delay in your presentation, but we appreciate you coming today and hope that you have safe travels as you visit the other colonies today after your visit with Mr. Feller, and we appreciate the update, so thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me, and I much prefer this than meeting you on a screen.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to take a 7-minute health break, and then we'll meet back and jump back into our action items. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. So we are back. We're a little bit out of order here. So just to remind everyone, we are jumping back to, let me get my papers in order here. E6. Thank you, Mr. Long. Okay, so E6, we were talking about the meeting dates. We had an amendment and an amendment to the amendment that were both defeated, which brings us back to the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed meeting dates for the 2020-2023 regular board meeting and meeting of the whole meeting as presented, as both the amendment and the amendment to the amendment are in front of you here. As they have been defeated, we will not be discussing them any further and will only be discussing the motion. And this was moved by Trustee Stankiewicz. So, is there any discussion, further discussion around these dates? We had just heard from Trustee Toon. No, we had just heard from you, right? Oh, okay. Would you like to speak now? Sure. I keep putting Trustee Toon on the spot. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Previously, Trustee Yeagus had spoke about continuity and how challenging it can be not only for public but for staff if we're holding dates and that we don't need or we don't intend to use or just out of the hope chance that we might use that. And I think that that is a key thing to look at when we look at this. We've done that in the past. We've held dates and it doesn't work because you end up just filling it and having meetings that you could have correlated things and combined and got them achieved in a shorter, less amount of time and meeting less. It's kind of like the fish in the fish tank. You expand, the fish expands to the size of the thing. So if we have those in our dates, we're going to use them and we won't cancel them. It's been a practice in the past to try and do that, but we got away from doing that to make it easier on staff. If you look at the December date, for example, you meet the 19th of December and then you meet again on January 9th. That leaves 4 days for staff to prepare for that January meeting. 4 days. The rest is holidays when they're not working. So that goes outside of scope of policy for an amount of time that is supposed to happen in between meetings to prepare, to send out agendas and notifications. So 4 days before Christmas, we have staff preparing for a meeting when there's a lot of other things going on, school visits and things that not only for us, but I know administrators like to, our superintendent and associate superintendents try and attend a lot of those great celebrations as well. So I just caution this is not something that is coming as a recommendation from administration saying this is what they would like. This is coming out of the request of, we explicitly said 2 meetings a month, and I think we made a mistake with that because it's not just the December time. There's another time where it's 5 days in between the meetings and another time when it's 8 days. And ideally, like that's a really short a turnaround of time. And I'm sure administration could attest to that, that it's takes a lot of time and prep to get for meetings, and meeting that often is not only can be overtaxing, it can be unproductive because they won't have time to get the information that we discussed or we talked about in the previous meeting. So that's why I'm against having such a full twice-a-month calendar as being presented.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead, Trustee Stankiewicz.
We have in the past needed extra dates, and so I would like to move forward with this and leave the dates as we have listed and recommended by our staff and admin team. And as the schedule moves forward, we can always eliminate a day that's not required.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, the dates are in front of us. I will not read them all, but the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approved the proposed meeting dates for the 2022-2023 regular board and meeting of the whole meetings as presented. All of those in favor? Oh, sorry, stop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. The vote will be recorded. Again, that the recommendation of trustees approve the proposed meeting dates for the 2022-2023 regular board and meeting of the whole meetings as presented. All those in favor, please raise your hand and keep them up for the record. Okay. Perfect. And by a show of hands, those opposed, please. Perfect. And we'll just give our secretary a moment to get that recorded. Thank you very much, everybody. We will now be moving on to E7. That page is gone. Oh, here it is. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Here goes my French. I might need some help from Trustee Gimber, who is fluent in French. Okay, so E7, the Franco-Sud Grand Opening Invitation. Trustee Poitras, as board chair, received an invitation for the official opening of École des Grands Vents. How was it? École des Grands Vents in Bellevue. Go ahead.
École des Grands Vents.
École des Grands Vents in Bellevue. Yes. I will not read it again. The school opened in September of 2021, and the grand opening will be held in the evening of Thursday, May 19th, 2022. Trustee Poitras will discuss the possibility of the LRSD board representative attending on behalf of the board. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve Trustee blank to attend the grand opening, and I will be making this motion. Yeah. So as board chair, I received an invitation to their school opening, and they said they would love to have representation from our board there, and that if the superintendent wanted to come as well, that would be fine as well. I think that in building capacity and relationships, that it would be beneficial to accept this invitation. As the board chair was invited, I would recommend that the board chair go, but I'm also open to, if the trustees feel that maybe a trustee from that ward should be the one to attend, then we could make that recommendation as well. And so with that, I will open it up to questions. We'll go to Trustee Yagos and then Trustee Long.
I am not asking a question. I was going to suggest that as board chair, you should go because you speak for the board. And basically, this is one of the duties of the chair to attend these kind of functions. So I also agree that it would be good for somebody to attend this and see what's going on and everything else.
Perfect, thank you. So I would consider that a friendly amendment for it to say that the Board of Trustees approve the board chair to attend the grand opening. And we'll go to Trustee Long. Thank you, Trustee Yagos.
I would suggest an amendment to the amendment. And my suggestion is that Trustee Gimber be added onto that. And my reasoning is that I would be aware she's very interested in, one, the French language, and two, French education. And I realize there are budget implications with that, but I think it would be good for the board to, because of her knowledge of the language and the culture and the education, that she be there, and that perhaps that might benefit us sometime in the future when talking about French language or second languages in our schools. I think the experience would be good for her and us.
Thank you, Trustee Long. Just for the sake of our notes here, because the board chair being added was considered a friendly amendment, that makes this just an amendment. And so therefore, this is not an amendment to the amendment. It will just be an amendment. So we are now only speaking about the amendment, which is to add Trustee Gimber to the list of representatives that would go. Any other thoughts around that? Yeah, we'll go Trustee Hodges and then Trustee Gimber.
I like the idea of having Trustee Gimber attend this also. She's also on our second language committee run through Zone 6, which is part of ASBA. And so it's always good to have the knowledge of that behind her too, and just maybe any questions that arise or anything that she can answer, that would be great.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Gimber?
Thank you, Trustee Long, for putting my name forward, and I would be honored to attend. I believe any opportunity we have to strengthen our relationship with surrounding schools outside our division is one we should definitely take. I'd be interested in hearing how we could work together to grow second language education in Alberta and supporting French education in our division with Franco-Sud. I'd also like to add, as Trustee Hodges just mentioned, as the Zone 6 second language representative, the Second Language Committee has shown a great interest in having someone from a Francophone school that would be willing to sit on our committee. We're looking for somebody. So this is an opportunity for me to develop a relationship with somebody at a Francophone school. And maybe then we could have a local Francophone representative on our Zone 6 language committee. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gimber. Trustee Yagos?
Just as information, I totally agree that with this is that Trustee Gimber would be a welcome addition to go to this. The person who is now chair of the school board and actually lives part-time in the Crow's Nest Pass, the trustee Marco, and I can't remember his last name, was on the committee, the second language committee, and I assume he still is. I don't know if he quit or not. Well, maybe because he's chair, he hasn't. So it'll be a good time to get in touch with him and talk to him again about going on again. So that would be a good point. So yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, so we're voting on the amendment to add. So the amendment is that the Board of Trustees approve that the board chair and Trustee Gimber attend the grand opening. Yeah, of the, maybe just attend the Franco-Sud grand opening, just for clarity. I will not. École de Grand Vence. Yeah, that was my serious attempt. Okay. Okay, so we're just voting on the amendment at this time. And the change is to add Trustee Gimber. So all in favor of the amendment? Perfect. Is there any more discussion around the motion? Okay. Well, that was just on the amendment. Yeah. No, we accepted the first one as friendly. So, yeah. Okay, so we'll now be voting on the recommendation, and the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the board chair and Trustee Gimber to attend the Franco-Sud grand opening. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I am sorry. Oh, it was me. I could have closed. I was going to apologize for not letting someone close, but it was myself. Okay, perfect. So we'll move on to E8. Matthew Halton is holding their Spring Experiential Learning Week, May 2nd to the 5th, 2022. The school has invited the board to attend anytime that week, as well as to attend the dinner party showdown. It's the Ukrainian edition in support of Ukrainian humanitarian aid on Thursday, May 5th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the cost of $30 per plate. And the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees would approve Trustee Poitras, sorry, I meant to have Poitras in there, to attend the dinner party showdown, as that is my school. So I will be making that motion. And to speak to it, Experiential Learning Week is excellent. It's something that we try and go to every year. Usually both Lori and myself. I can't remember if Jim was up or able to make it. It is like an assembly. So it's just something that we're invited to go to and see in the school, and it's always a great experience. We often have tried to go on the Monday and then on the Friday to see where they're starting at in their different pursuits and then where they are at the end. As this is in the evening and has a cost to it, I was hoping to get board approval to attend it with that cost being covered, and I just wanted to bring it to the board for that purpose. So I'll leave it there for any questions and comments. We'll go to Trustee Poitras, or it's me. We'll go to Trustee Toon.
Yeah, I've attended Experiential Week in the past, but I feel that this shouldn't be something that should be covered by the board because this falls under honorarium. We have a lot of, I think it's great that they're doing a fundraiser, especially for Ukrainian humanitarian aid with everything that's going on, but we have a lot of other fundraisers that have happened in the past and will happen going forward in our schools, and it always just falls on the trustee that is local to attend and have it be covered out of honorarium. We don't cover per diems with these type of events, so I would say just out of precedent setting that this is something that will create challenges going forward to support other trustees for other great, equally good things going forward, but we'll have a huge budget implication. So for me, I don't think that we should support this.
Thank you so much, Trustee Toon. I appreciate that. Trustee Hodges? Oh, no, Trustee Hodges is okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, with that being said, we will call the question that the Board of Trustees approve Trustee Poitras to attend the dinner party showdown at Matthew Halton, and it should say with the cost of that $30. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Perfect, and that is defeated. Thank you very much. So just for clarity, I can still attend this event, right? And go, okay, perfect, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of our action items. We'll move on to our discussion items. We have already had our Livingston leader presentation as well as our...
Excuse me?
Yes?
Point of order. They removed Mr. Perry's report.
Yeah.
F3. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Thank you. So we've already done F1, which was the Livingston leaders, and we've had our presentation, F2 from Mr. Nick Beer on the Hutterite colonies. So we'll move to discussion item F3, where we had Mr. Associate Superintendent Jeff Perry, his report pulled from the consent agenda. I would ask that, Nikki, if we could give you a minute to please pull that up on the screen. Thank you. Efficiency is my middle name. Okay, perfect. So we've had this pulled. Trustee Toon asked to pull it. So I know that we've all had a chance to look over this and read it based on it being part of the consent agenda. So I will just turn it over to Trustee Toon to address what he wanted to address, and if we have any questions about any other portions, we can address those at that time too. Please go ahead, Mr. Toon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just a couple, I think, really key things here that you highlighted in your report, Mr. Perry, about the value scoping session in for Nanton with our capital plan, and also the Crow's Nest Pass property. If you could give an update on either of those two things beyond what, or including what you did in your report. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a bit of detail, but there is some other information just with regards to progress. So like it mentions in there, and I think it's important that we kind of update the public as well at this time with regards to these two items. And I know that's what Trustee Toon is getting at. With regards to the Nanton solution, obviously that was our #1 priority. It was approved at our last board meeting by the board. And so the progress to date is that we are seeking proposals from organizations in the province of Alberta that provide those value scoping sessions. And so that is a session that has requirements established by Alberta Education, where a facilitator comes in along with architects and cost consultants to take into account what the priorities of the community are, what some trends are, what the desire around curriculum within the school the community would like to be, and those types of things. And it takes us through a process so we get to certain alternatives as to how we can go forward and what the best solution for the community of Nanton will be. And so we're working towards having that completed in June. The timeline is really important because the report after that process occurs has to be completed by the facilitator and architects, and then we have to have that information by August to Alberta Education so they can take that into consideration in suggested projects that go up to the minister in September. And so that's the timeline. And so we're currently in the process of acquiring proposals from the 3 groups that we know of that are known to do this in the province of Alberta. We've received 1 proposal to date. We're awaiting 2 additional proposals, and then we'll make a decision on that. But the intent is to have something in June and have the ability to have that information feed up into Alberta Education prior to September. So I'll pause there on that topic and see if there's any questions that brings up. We talked about when we were presenting the Nanton solution about going this direction. We still have to seek funds from Alberta Education to complete the solution. And so part of the proposals that come forward is a fee, and then we would turn that fee to Alberta Education and they would identify if they would give us those funds or not. So that's where we're at right now. We're hoping to complete that shortly and bring more information back and set a date for that. But is there any additional questions that anyone might have?
Thank you, Mr. Perry, for the information on that piece. Is there any questions around that piece? My question is just, once you get that approval and set that date, how long does that process usually take? Is it like a full year? Is it?
No, so it's a 2-day process.
Okay.
So there's certain individuals, community members, town councillors, different stakeholders that are invited to that. Alberta Education Infrastructure are also part of the process. It's a 2-day process that is very concentrated on looking at the alternatives, again, taking into account all those things that I mentioned, and then actually looking at the best option and solution that's available and costing them out. So at the end of this, you have a submission that actually identifies what the actual cost will likely be given the market that we're in right now for that solution. And so that's what goes up to Alberta Education. So we submitted a capital plan. Capital plans can be adjusted during the year. This is something that would be added to that submission to Alberta Education. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does make sense. Thank you. Trustee Toon?
Thank you. Yeah, being part of the process on the previous one that was done, it's really great. Administration does an awesome job about working with the facilitator to ensure that you have a diverse community perspective in there, and it's a really good process to work through over the 2 days. I really enjoyed going through it and look forward to seeing the outcome for the future one as well.
Thank you. Any other questions around that piece before we move on from the Nanton solution? Okay, perfect. Thank you. We will go ahead and have Mr. Perry speak to the Crow's Nest Pass property.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So the very first point on the Crow's Nest property. Lots has been happening as we prepare to be ready for July and our FACES program using that facility and that site. The board in a previous motion approved $200,000 to put towards a second facility, which at the time we thought was a reasonable amount of funding. Since that time, preliminary costs have come in. Let me back up a little bit. So we did go forward with a request for proposal with regards to construction management support on this project, just for timing purposes. And what that would do is that would help us move forward quickly, and they would be part of the design team. As part of the really early stages of that, it was identified that this project was going to be significantly higher in cost than what we had anticipated. And the timeline was not going to be reasonable to be able to complete all the items that needed to be done in advance of July 1st, which meant that the project really was not going to be able to be completed with the resources that were available and with the timeline that we had. And so at this point, no, we don't anticipate moving forward with this project in the short term. And we are going back to not the drawing board, but looking at a new timeline and perhaps expanding our vision to not just this short-term second facility, but what that site looks like overall, and that'll give us a little bit more time. We've had discussions with the architects in that work has to be done in the short term to be prepared for the long term as well. So that's what we're putting together a plan around that. And so I just thought it was important to bring to your attention that although we have that motion on the floor and has been approved by the board, from administration's perspective, we will not be moving forward in the short term, and we will look at a plan moving forward and bring that to the board. Okay. Is there any questions around that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry. Okay.
Was there anything else about, I will identify that our number one priority at this point now is to complete the kitchen area in the current facility that we have out there, to minimize the associated costs with that project. Our own personnel have been involved and will be involved where they can be with regards to that process. So we have done some demolition in the one area in preparation to move forward with putting in food prep area and equipment that can support that. And we're moving forward with that to be completed by the end of June so that it's usable and supportive for the programming starting then and then into the fall and onward. One result of that is that some of the anticipated and planned activities that were going to be out on that within the facility have been moved to alternative locations. And so the site can still be used. The washrooms are still available at this time, so schools are taking advantage of that. But the inside of the facility is currently out of commission until we complete that project.
Perfect, thank you, Mr. Perry. So as there was a motion on the floor, approving the funds to have this happen. I see in your report it talks about looking for other funds, sponsorships, grants. With the motion that has passed, when we do move forward with this, are those dollars still considered to be approved at a later date and time up to that amount that was set by the board, or would that need to be revisited, or does the board need to take action on that, as the dollars that we were planning on using for that may have been specific to being used for the end of this, before the end of this year?
That's a great question. And unless something else occurs, I would assume that those funds are still targeted and available for the project, knowing that the project's not moving forward in the short term. So if there was a desire by the board to do something different than that, then there would need to be a motion or whatever. But at this point, I would assume that the funds are there and targeted for that project.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perry. Are there any other questions or comments around that? Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So with that, we will move on to item G, our key messages from today. We're looking for 3 key messages to take out to our schools and share with our public. Trustee Hodges.
As always, I'd love to highlight our 2 presentations today.
Okay, so we'll go with our Livingston Leader presentation and our Colony presentation. Okay. Did you want those as one? Okay. Trustee Toon?
Sale of the former division office in Claresholm, I think would be conditional sale.
Yes. Do you, how does everyone feel about sharing that since it's just conditional?
I think that it's really huge news after meeting for 2 years, and it's a positive, and it will, I think, be a big benefit having those resources available for other things when it goes through.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Long.
Put you on the spot, Trustee Toon. Do you have a suggestion for wording?
I think Nikki has it great up there. Conditional sale of the Claresholm division office property would be more than sufficient.
Okay. Any other thoughts about that? Go ahead, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I think it's public information at this point now. We talked about the sale of the property when looking at the purchase of other property in the jurisdiction as well. So it's a natural update to say that there's a potential. The details are not out there, but there is a potential there, and it's public information.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Trustee Stankiewicz, then Trustee Long.
The delegation attending the land-based camp and the grand opening invitation.
Okay, so that would be trustee representation at both the land-based camp and the Franco Sud grand opening. Okay, Trustee Long.
I'm going to back up to number 2. I certainly could be wrong here. I'm just thinking of a public announcement, to be more specific about Claresholm property. That's why I was talking to Trustee Toon about adding to something like previous school board office. A lot of people will not know what Claresholm property is. Yeah.
Thanks, Trustee Long. And as with all of our key messages, when they're sent out, Nikki always adds a little background information, a little paragraph on each one. So we'll have that as well. But yes, for our notes here and for people looking at our meeting minutes, Claresholm Division office would be great. Conditional sale of the Claresholm Division office. Okay, perfect. Any other thoughts around the key messages? No? Okay, so we will have those be our 3 key messages at this time. Do you guys want to do in camera while we have lunch, or do you want to break for lunch, in camera and lunch? Okay. Okay. Is lunch here? Noon, maybe? Okay. Okay, can I get, only Greg's hungry, so can I get a motion to move in camera for our in camera pieces? I'll go to Trustee Hodges, only because I have written you down more today, Trustee Yegos, even though you said I look 32. Okay, so we will now move into camera at 11:52. Perfect, thank you.